Hello, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're joining in. My name is Kylie. I'm a teacher trainer here at Ellii. Today's session is Polls and Dilemmas in Action. We're going to be taking a look at our gamified activities, polls and dilemmas in the Ellii platform, practicing a bit as if we were students in the classroom, and sharing how you can use this with your students. So I would love for you to pop in the chat and share where you're joining in from. I'm in Mountain View, California. I see some people are joining in from Paris, North Carolina. Welcome, so happy you are here. So a couple of things before we get started and before we take a look at the polls. This session will be recorded and you'll receive a message with that recording that you can share with others afterwards. Also, throughout the session, feel free to put your questions in the Q&A box, which is right on the right-hand side below the comment feature. That way I can see them better and hopefully answer your questions before the end of the session. So those are a few things I just wanted to note before we get started here. I see some more people are joining in, and Brooke popping in from Kentucky. Hello, thanks for being here. Okay, I think we're ready to get started. I'll share my screen in just a moment, but I wanted to also share that I will be showing the student view of polls and dilemmas on the right-hand side of my screen and the teacher view on the left hand. So if you're not able to join in with a device or with another browser window, fear not, you can follow along with the student view that I have set up on the right-hand side of the screen. So I think let's get started. Let's get going. Let's get into the platform. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And we can get going. So I first want to share with you all how to get to polls and dilemmas. A little bit about polls and dilemmas. You can use them regardless if you have an Ellii account or not. So feel free to pass this along to your English teacher colleagues that anybody can use polls and dilemmas. We place a big focus on speaking, collaborative and pair and group work here at Ellii. And so that's why we developed these gamified activities that teachers can do with their students. It's a great way to start off a lesson, to cool down from a lesson, or if your students just need a break halfway through and just want an opportunity to share and speak with one another. So that's a little bit of a background. I first want to take you into polls, which live up here in the Everything navigation menu. And you'll see there that they're interactive surveys. So I'll click in here. And our polls, we've created them for a wide variety of levels. So you can see here, you can filter through the different levels here to make sure you find a poll that's good for your students, as well as different categories. So we have a wide variety here. I'll just scroll to show you a little bit more. And we're always releasing new ones. So if you have a suggestion, we would love to hear from you. And these polls are about a wide variety of topics, and they're just geared towards students to share their opinions and just an opportunity to spark that conversation in class. I have one in mind already that I want to lead with you, and it's the names poll. So I'll click into the poll here. And before you launch the poll with your students, you get a description of the poll and you can instantly start it, but you can also preview the poll before launching it. So you can take a look at the questions, make sure that they're on track with what you want to be covering with your students through the preview here. And you'll see that the questions progress throughout the poll. And when we practice today, we're going to do probably maybe 5 or 6 questions together, and then we'll move on to a dilemma. One thing I'll mention when you're browsing polls is that you can scroll all the way to the bottom once you're in a poll and find related materials. So if you're already teaching this What's Your Name lesson, this poll about names would be a great supplement to that, whether it's a warm-up, cool down, or just integrating into your instruction. And a couple of other lessons as well that you could use with students. So that's a great way to connect these polls to how you can use them in the classroom by accompanying them with a lesson. So I'm going to scroll back up to the top because I really want to get into it. And I'm going to click Start Poll. So before I do that, I just want to prompt you if you have a device handy that you can join in on the poll or pull up another browser window. But again, I'll share the student side of things on the right-hand side of the screen so you can follow along and see what it would be like for a student. Another thing to mention is that these polls and dilemmas can be used in person or online. So if you're facilitating a class online, maybe through Zoom, you can still use these polls and dilemmas and put students into groups and launch the polls and dilemmas how I'm doing today. So I'm going to click here, Start Poll, and you will see that it prompts students to go to ellii.com/play, or you can pull it up with the QR code there. So I'm going to just move my screen over a little bit here, and I'm going to join in this incognito window as a student. And I would love for you to join in. So I see one person already has popped in. Thank you, Marta and Christine. Fabulous. And so I will do the same along the side here. I'm going to go to ellii.com/play, and it will take me to this screen. And here's where I can enter in that 5-digit code here. So 94750, and that will take me in. The next thing I need to do, or students need to do, is enter in their name. So I'll pretend my name is Sandro as a student, and I will click Join. And now you probably see on your end, if you've already popped in and joined in, that the session will start soon. So I'll just wait a few more moments in case other people want to join. And again, if you're not able to join in for whatever reason, please just follow along. You can check out the student view on the right-hand side here, the teacher view on the left-hand side, and we'll get started in just a moment. I, as the teacher, can see the names of the folks joining in. And up in the left-hand corner, I can also see the total count. So if I know that I have, 7 people in my class, I see that almost everybody is connected here. And so I feel like, maybe I'm ready to go and I want to start the poll. I will click Start here. I'm going to give it just a couple more moments in case other people who are on this webinar right now want to join in before we take a look at the first question together. So I see here that 7 people have joined in. Wonderful. And I think we can launch it. So let's click Start here as the teacher. And again, you can display this in class on your screen, or if you're sharing your screen on a virtual class like we're doing now. And I'll click Start. And then it prompts you with just a general kickoff question. Are you good with names? I'll click Continue as the teacher. And here is the first question. Pretty simple question here, approachable. Do you like your name? Yes or no? And you'll see some people are already responding here. I can see in real time their responses. And I, as the student, so on the right-hand side, just need to select yes or no. And I'll choose yes as well, but I don't know if anybody's actually going to choose no. I love that everybody here likes their name. And once you have your selection there, you'll click Submit. Oh, I see. Okay, one person has answered no. And you can see it shows in real time how students are responding. And now, how do I know that it's time to move on as the teacher and review the answers? Up in the left-hand corner, I see 8 out of 8 people have responded. That tells me, okay, we're good to go. We can stop and discuss. And now this question of the poll, not the whole poll, has ended and students are prompted to look up. So maybe I, as the teacher at this moment, say, okay, who would like to share why you like your name? Or raise your hand if you like your name. And you, as the student, can use these little emojis at the bottom to react. Or if you want to share more, your students want to share more, they can click this little hand icon at the bottom, and that will tell me as the teacher that, okay, Sandro wants to respond. Sandro wants to share. And so I can say, okay, Sandro, please share. Do you like your name? Why or why not? And then once Sandro has shared, I just simply click his name here, the little X, and his name disappears. I see some people are trying out the little emoji feature. It's really fun when students share responses and their fellow classmates can kind of respond in real time, really building that connection with each other. So let's take a look. Let's move on to the second prompt in this poll. I do see that somebody has raised their hand, and if this were a real class, I would definitely call on you, but I'm going to, you can lower your hand as well. We're going to move on to the second prompt here. So I'll click this arrow. And the second prompt of a poll is always presenting some vocabulary words. So a way for students to become familiar with some new vocab, identify vocab that they already know. So you'll see the student prompt on your device is choose the words you know. So this is where students would click the words that they already know. So maybe Sandro knows classic and pronounce and unique. Those are cognates in other languages. Sandro's familiar with those, so he clicks those and clicks submit. I also see some other folks have popped in and identified the words that they know. And again, in real time, you can see how students are responding and what words students know the most. It looks like pronounce and unique are the words that students know the most, and pet name and nickname and classic, all of them. But if there were some words that students know the least, when I click stop and discuss here as the teacher, you'll see that the words that students know the least will appear larger. And this is really intentional so that students can focus on those words. You as the teacher kind of can get a gauge, okay, they know these couple of words, the other ones they're not so familiar with. And you can click on the word then and see the definition there and an example. So a good way to do this in class would be, clicking on a word that students, noted that they didn't know very well, calling on a student, say, hey, Marta, could you read the definition in the example, please? And call on a couple of students and get them familiar with these words, because these words they will see later on in the poll. And we try to keep it approachable with just a couple of words at once to not overwhelm students. So it kind of makes a word cloud there. So I see 7 out of 7 had responded. That's why I clicked stop and discuss. Let's move on. I'll click stop and discuss, and then let's move on to the next question here, which I do by the little arrow. So now it's time to discuss this further. I'll click next here, and it builds a little bit. Now students have to decide, do they agree or disagree with this statement? I am good at remembering names. Okay, I see somebody already responded with disagree. I'm also going to go with disagree here. I'm good with remembering faces, but not so much names. And I'll click submit. And again, you can see in real time how students are responding. And I, as the teacher, see here, okay, 7 out of 8 of my students, 8 out of 8 have responded, and I'm ready to stop and discuss. And again, the students, you can raise your hands, respond with some emojis, put students into pairs and discuss, maybe take a couple of students who are good at remembering names, pair them with those who are not, and have them share. So just another way to have students connect with one another. Okay, we're going to do one more question here with this poll. You'll see up in the corner that we've done 5 out of 11 so far. And we only have 30 minutes together today in this webinar, so we're only going to do some of the questions. And if you only want to do some of the questions in your class, you can do that as well. You don't have to obviously complete all of the questions in the poll. But let's move along to that next question here. So I'll click the arrow. And I love this prompt here. There is a story behind my name. This really gets students sharing with one another. I see somebody said no. I'll click yes for Sandro here. And students make their selection, click submit. Okay. 6 out of 8 students have responded. I, as the teacher, can see that in the corner here. So I'll give it a couple more moments until everybody responds, or I feel like we've had enough time to respond. Okay, so not a lot of names, stories behind names in this group this morning. Looks like 7 out of 8 have responded. Okay, and again, I'll click stop and discuss here. And this is a moment for students to share. People love talking about their names and their stories. So this is a wonderful prompt for students to use that raising the hand tool here. So if I want to say, okay, class, who would like to share the story behind your name? Maybe Sandro wants to share, and he clicks that hand icon, and I can call on him. He can share aloud with the class if he'd like, and then I just click his little hand there. I see Marta also wants to share. Maybe she's done sharing, and then I can click her away. And then when those folks are sharing, their peers can react and respond in real time with those emojis, which I saw some people were playing around with. So I won't go into the rest of the questions for this poll because we're about halfway through our time, and I want to take you through a dilemma next, which is our other type of gamified activity. So to exit this poll, to close it, you simply go to the little red door in the upper right-hand corner, and you click yes, that you want to leave and close the poll for everybody. And you'll see on your end, on your device, that you were thanked for participating, and you can head back to Ellii and log into your platform if you would like. So now I want to take you into dilemmas, which are also a fun gamified activity. And those live right next door to the polls, those interactive surveys. And these are the critical thinking activities. And I'm going to make my screen larger here as I'm just explaining these a little bit further. And then we'll look at the student view and practice a bit. So these are what I would call a tricky what would you do scenario game. So these all present a difficult situation to students, and they have two choices. And they have to select one of the two choices and justify their response. So it's a good way to spark discussions, healthy debates in class, right? Practicing those skills of debating with one another. And you can see a wide variety of different scenarios here. These are more geared towards intermediate to advanced students, while our polls are available for all levels. So I have one in mind that I want to share with you and practice with you today, and that is the crooked coworker. It's the last one down here. So again, when I click in, I get a preview of this dilemma. I don't have to launch it right away. I can see the prompt, the original prompt, and the two options that students will need to select from. I also can take a look at the useful language that students can use and practice within this dilemma. Students will also have access to this useful language to kind of equip them better to be able to share their opinions, experiences, and debate with one another. And so those are some useful terms and sentence stems that students can use. So let's start the dilemma. I'm going to click here, Start Dilemma. And again, you're going to be prompted with that 5-digit code or using the QR code. So again, I'm going to go to ellii.com/play, and I'm going to join in as a student. I'm going to enter in that code here. So it's 17973 and click Next. And then I'm going to enter in my name. And let's do a different name here. Let's do Amanda, for example, my sister's name. And I'll click Join. Okay, looks like some other folks were able to join. I'll give it another moment before we kick off, but you'll see it looks pretty similar to polls, but there are some differences as well. So we've got 6 people, as I can see, 7 up in the corner here. So I think we are ready to launch this dilemma and get discussing. So I will click here, Start. And now you're presented with an image and a basic prompt before we get into the full dilemma here. So right here, you could already, kick off the dilemma by, making some predictions. You could call on students and say, hey, based on this picture and the little description there, what do you think is happening? Why is he stealing at work? What's going on? How does he feel, etc. But once you're ready to launch that dilemma, you just click Continue. And here is the full prompt. So when doing this in class, it's great if you could call on a student and have them read it out loud. I'll read it aloud for now. You discover a hardworking coworker who's struggling financially has been stealing small amounts of money from the company. If your boss finds out, she'll fire your coworker. What would you do? And there's 2 options here: report your coworker or turn a blind eye. So this is intentionally supposed to be tricky for students. There's no really one right answer, or maybe in your opinion, there is one right answer here. And so students can respond with what they would do. And you'll notice when students respond, like if I, as Amanda, say, turn a blind eye, for example, and submit, you'll notice that the responses don't populate here as a percentage like they did in polls. And that's really intentional because you don't want your students to be swayed by how other students are answering, and they'll have an opportunity to discuss. And so I see here that out of the 8 students who are on this dilemma, 7 have submitted their answers. And so when I feel like I'm ready to show the results to see how people responded, I click here, show results. And now it will show as a percentage and the total number of votes. And wow, I'm really surprised to see this because I've facilitated this practice dilemma before, and usually it's closer to 50-50, but only one person voted to report your coworker, and the others everybody else chose turn a blind eye. And so now it's time to discuss and have students chat with one another, debate, defend their responses, all of that. And so you as the teacher can see down here in the left-hand corner, discuss in groups. And when I click in, it gives some basic instructions of setting the group size, creating the groups, and starting the discussion. So I'll click start here. And here's where I can, again, select those groups. So maybe I want, if there's 8 people, I want about 3 groups here. And I can preview the groups. So I can see in group 1, Amanda, Christine, Raul, group 2, everybody else. And let's say, okay, I know that Amanda and Christine do not get along, and they probably shouldn't be in the same group. I can shuffle here up at the top and switch that around one more time if I would like. And then when I'm ready, I can click confirm groups. And now you will, as the student or the students, will move in the classroom or move into their breakout rooms in Zoom and click found my group. So for the interest of this demo, we're not actually going to break up into groups, but I would love if you could click found my group, and I can show you the next thing that you can do with students. So I'll give you a moment to do that. Once you've clicked found my group, you'll see at the bottom here that you have this little booklet, and that's that useful language that students can use when they're discussing with their peers. So I'll click into that to show you. There's those keywords of right, consequence, turn a blind eye, as well as sentence stems. So, maybe Amanda isn't super confident in sharing her opinion, but she could use one of these sentence stems to say, I chose to stay quiet because he is my friend, or something like that, right? It just equips them with a few extra tools to help them be able to justify their opinions. And so they have access to that by clicking that little booklet. And then as students are ready to share and want to share aloud in the group, I would then click speak up. And now it's time for students to share aloud their response in front of the class if they would like. So I'll click start here. And now it's time for folks to raise their hand. And I see some have already raised their hand here by clicking that little hand icon down at the bottom. And that indicates to me as the teacher, right, the teacher view on the left-hand side here, that 4 students want to share aloud. That's fantastic. I can click on the hand here, and then one by one, I can call on them. So I could call on Christine. She could share her response, how she discussed with her classmates, same with Natalia, Amanda, and Marta. And then once they've shared aloud, I can clear their names here. And I also see that Brooke wants to share, and Renee. This is fabulous. Everybody wants to share their responses. And I can click the X here once everybody has spoken aloud and given their justification. So that's a way that you can facilitate conversation about these topics with your students. You can put them into groups, have them debate, discuss, and defend their answers as well as share aloud. But the good thing is that students may have changed their mind. They may have been convinced or convinced others throughout their discussions. So it is time to vote again. So now it's time, as the teacher, I click vote again, and students will take another look at the prompt, the same prompt there, and they can change their mind or keep their answer. So maybe, Amanda spoke with Christine and she really changed her mind. She said, okay, Christine brought up some good points. I'm going to report my coworker and I'll change my mind and click submit. So I would love for you as the students to enter in your new response, and it could be the same. It could be the same choice. And I see down at the bottom here, I've received 7 answers so far. There's 8 people here in this session. So I'll give it another moment. And we will see and compare the first round to the last round to see if people change their minds at all. Okay, I see I have 8 responses here. Let's show results so everybody can see. Okay, so this round looks like 3 votes for report your coworker and 5 votes for turn a blind eye. So it seems to me like those conversations and those debates changed some people's minds here. And you can compare the first round to the second round by clicking final results. And now students and you as the teacher can really see, okay, how did people respond in the first round? How did people respond in the last round? And this alone might spark some conversation. Maybe somebody would share, I talked to Marta and she really convinced me that it would be better to report my coworker. And that's why I made the change. Or people always want to, elaborate more potentially here. So that is dilemmas. That's a dilemma that you can do with your students and how it works. And if you are ready and you want to launch another one, you could click new dilemma here. But if you're ready to end the session, conclude it, again, you could click end session here or the little red door at the top. I'll click end session and it will thank you for participating, and you can go back to dilemmas. You could browse for another one if you would like, and take a look and do another one with your students. I will say, similarly to the polls, in quite a few of these, you will also find that you can find related materials and lessons. So for example, I think there's one about a water bottle here. Oh, I can't find it, but we'll go with the tardy coworker and see if there's some lessons, related lessons there. Not in that one, but in some of these, you can scroll down and you'll find related materials like you could in polls and be able to, find some lessons that you could pair these with. Okay, so that we are almost to our 30 minutes of our turbo session of polls and dilemmas. I'm going to go ahead and check the chat to see if I missed anything or if any questions have come through. Let's see here, and the Q&A. I see here, Marco has a question in the Q&A. Or there's a lesson called the Tax Preparer in which a video is shown, and right after, teachers can use the questions on the PDF file to check students' understanding of the video. This kind of lesson is quite relevant. Yeah, talking about taxes and completing tax forms and honesty there. Yeah, Marco, that would be a good lesson to pair along with the crooked coworker. Thanks for sharing. Okay. Amazing. I'm checking here and seeing. Okay, yeah, we just answered this question from Marco, so I'll mark it as done answering. Okay, I don't see any other questions coming through in the chat. One thing I'll end with is, again, if you don't have an Ellii account right now, you can still practice these polls and dilemmas. You can go to ellii.com and you'll find they're unlocked here with polls and dilemmas, and you can try them out. I'm also going to share right now one of our help docs here that show how to use polls and dilemmas. So if you need a quick refresher on how these work, you can take a look at this help doc. Additionally, there's these watch demo buttons both on polls and dilemmas, and you can watch a brief video to get a quick refresher on those and how to use them with your students. So thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate your time. I hope you had fun checking out these polls and dilemmas. I have a short feedback survey. We would love to hear your thoughts. I'm linking that below. It's called Feedback Survey about the webinar, and also if you'd like to see anything in the future as well. We host these Become an Expert sessions a couple times a month. We also host regular Intro to Ellii webinar sessions with the basics of the platform. So thanks again so much, everybody, for joining in and practicing these polls and dilemmas, and we hope to see you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Ellii